The holographic projector hummed faintly as the image of Earth's solar system hovered in the air, spinning lazily. Ava Carter sat at her desk, nervously chewing the end of her stylus, aware of the alien eyes fixed on her. Professor Lihx's twin pupils blinked independently, a sign of his growing impatience. "Miss Carter," he said, his voice carrying the refined authority of an interstellar educator, "it is a simple exercise. Draw the solar system of your home planet." Ava glanced around the room. Her classmates, representatives from a dozen species, snickered, their laughter a mix of chirps, growls, and whistles. She flushed but nodded, leaning over her tablet. It wasn't the first time her human background had marked her as an underdog at the prestigious Interstellar Academy of Applied Sciences. She tapped the screen, her fingers trembling. As the stylus met the surface, something strange happened. Her nerves melted away, replaced by an odd calmness. Ava's hand began to move, guided by a force she couldn't explain. She wasn't merely drawing circles for planets, her strokes flowed with precision, crafting sweeping arcs and intricate patterns. Professor Lihx's focus sharpened. The room grew quieter as other students turned to watch Ava's seemingly effortless sketch. The solar system she had been assigned was there: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, but they were dwarfed by a sprawling map that extended far beyond their borders. Stars, nebulae, and intricate constellations filled the screen. By the time Ava set the stylus down, her map had consumed the entire surface of the tablet. She stared at it, her breath shallow. I don't know what happened," she stammered. Professor Lihx approached, his towering form casting a shadow over her. He steadied the map, his expression unreadable. "Miss Carter," he said slowly, his voice tinged with disbelief, "where did you learn to chart star systems with this level of detail?" "I didn't," Ava replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just drew what felt right." Professor Lihx tapped his communicator, summoning a holographic interface. He overlaid Ava's drawing with a known stellar map. The comparison was staggering. Ava's map not only matched established charts but also extended into uncharted regions, depicting star systems and anomalies even the most advanced scanners hadn't detected. The room buzzed with disbelief. "That's impossible," one of the students muttered. "Humans aren't capable of that." Ignoring the murmurs, Professor Lihx leaned closer to Ava. "This knowledge," he said, his tone suddenly grave, "is beyond your species' known capabilities. How did you acquire it?" "I don't know," Ava said, shaking her head. "I swear, I just felt like I was tracing something already there." Professor Lihx straightened, his four-fingered hand gripping the edge of the desk. "This map is more than a mere curiosity. It reveals information even the Galactic Council doesn't possess." He paused, then issued a command that silenced the room. "Class dismissed." As the students filed out, their whispers fading, Professor Lihx turned back to Ava. "Stay," he ordered. "We need to talk." Ava's heart raced. She had always thought she was ordinary, a human out of her depth in a galaxy of brilliance. But now, she wasn't so sure. The polished metal walls of Professor Lihx's office gleamed under soft blue lighting, but the air inside was anything but calm. Ava sat stiffly in a chair that adjusted itself uncomfortably to her human frame. The holographic map she had drawn floated in the air between them, spinning slowly. Every detail, every star, every galactic swirl, seemed impossibly precise, as though it had been etched by a master cartographer with lifetimes of experience. Professor Lihx paced back and forth, his forearms clasped behind him. His dual pupils shifted independently, one scanning the map while the other remained fixed on Ava. "You must understand, Miss Carter," he began, "this is not just an impressive drawing. It is a revelation." Ava shifted uneasily. "I already told you, I didn't know what I was doing. It just happened." Professor Lihx stopped pacing and turned to her. "And yet, the implications of your work are monumental. The uncharted regions you've detailed could contain resources, civilizations, or dangers we've never encountered. Your accuracy in depicting gravitational anomalies suggests a level of comprehension beyond even our most advanced AI models." He leaned in, his tone sharpening. "You must tell me if there's anything you're withholding. Any prior knowledge, training, or... I don't know anything more than what I've told you. Ava interrupted, her voice trembling. I didn't study this. I've never even heard of half the stuff on that map. Lichek regarded her for a long moment, then straightened. Very well. But your claims will need to be validated. This will go to the High Council of Astronomers. At that, Ava's stomach sank. The High Council was no casual audience. It was an assembly of the galaxy's most brilliant minds, known for scrutinizing new discoveries with ruthless intensity. What does that mean for me? She asked, her voice small. It means, Lihx said, tapping his communicator, that your map is no longer just an academic exercise. It's a matter of galactic interest. Moments later, the office door slid open, and two tall figures stepped in. Their robes, adorned with holographic sigils, marked them as council envoys. Ava felt her chest tighten. She wasn't just in trouble, she was important, in a way that terrified her. The taller envoy, a thin insectoid with iridescent wings, extended a long, spindly limb toward the map. This is the artifact, it asked, its voice a faint, clicking echo. Yes, Lihx replied. And this is its creator. The insectoid's multifaceted eyes locked on Ava, sending a shiver down her spine. Human, it said, you will accompany us. The council must hear your explanation. Ava looked at Lihx, panic rising in her throat. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I believe you, Lihx said, his voice softening for the first time. But whether you intended it or not, you've created something that could reshape our understanding of the galaxy. You cannot hide from that. The envoys gestured for her to follow. She rose reluctantly, her legs feeling like lead. As she stepped through the door, she glanced back at Lihx. What happens now? His answer was as much a warning as it was an assurance. Now, Ava Carter, your destiny begins. Outside, the corridor stretched endlessly, its glowing walls reflecting her uneasy expression. She had arrived at this academy as an outsider, a nobody. But now, she carried a burden she hadn't asked for, with no idea where it would take her, or the galaxy. Ava's dreams had changed. Each night, she drifted into an abyss of swirling stars and radiant nebulas. Strange patterns danced in her mind, fractals of light and shadow that pulsed with rhythms she couldn't understand, but somehow felt deeply familiar. By morning, the visions lingered like whispers, fading only when she opened her eyes. Her days weren't much better. Ever since her map had been taken to the Galactic Council of Astronomers, she'd been subjected to endless questioning. The council envoys, along with a rotating team of scholars, pressed her for answers she didn't have. Describe the process again, one of them demanded during another grueling session. The scholar, a reptilian with scales that shimmered under the harsh lights, leaned forward, his eyes narrow. How did you produce the map? I didn't produce anything, Ava said, frustration seeping into her voice. I've told you, I wasn't thinking. My hand just moved. It's like, she hesitated, searching for the right words. It's like the map was already in my head, and I just traced it. Traced it from what? Another scholar, an amphibian with translucent skin, croaked. Your species has no record of advanced astrography, no neural enhancements. This level of precision should be impossible for a human. I don't know. Ava snapped, her voice cracking. I don't know why this is happening to me. The scholars exchanged skeptical glances, their whispers barely audible. Ava slumped back in her chair, exhaustion washing over her. Every question chipped away at her sanity. She felt like an experiment, a specimen under a microscope. After the session, she stumbled back to her quarters. The door hissed shut behind her, and she sank onto her narrow bed, rubbing her temples. She wanted nothing more than to go home, back to Earth, where the most complicated thing she'd had to deal with was passing exams. But Earth felt like a distant memory, and the weight of her newfound notoriety pressed down on her. As she stared at the ceiling, her communicator chimed. It was Professor Lihx. Miss Carter, his voice crackled through the device, I must speak with you. It's urgent. Of course it is, Ava muttered under her breath. Still, she dragged herself to his office, her curiosity outweighing her irritation. When she arrived, Lihx's usually composed demeanor was gone. His twin pupils flicked erratically, and his forearms gestured with urgency. "Ava," he said, gesturing for her to sit, "there have been developments." "What kind of developments?" she asked warily. "Your map," LIHX began, activating a holographic display. The image of a newly explored star system appeared, one of the uncharted regions Ava had sketched. "A research vessel followed one of your coordinates. They found remnants of an ancient civilization, a civilization we didn't even know existed." Ava leaned forward, her pulse quickening. The display showed colossal structures orbiting a dying star, their surfaces etched with patterns eerily similar to those in her dreams. "What are those?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "We're calling them resonance pylons," LIHX said. "Their purpose is unclear, but they emit a frequency that matches the patterns in your map." He paused, his gaze locking on hers. "It's as if the pylons are responding to you." The room seemed to shrink around her. "Responding to me? How? Why?" "That's what we're trying to understand," LIHX said. "But there's more." He adjusted the display, revealing an overlay of galactic activity. "The rival species monitoring our academy has intercepted this data. They believe you're the key to unlocking something powerful, something dangerous." Ava's stomach dropped. "So now they're after me?" "Not just you," LIHX said grimly. "The knowledge you possess could tip the balance of power in the galaxy. They'll stop at nothing to control it." Ava's head spun. The map, the dreams, the pylons, it was all connected. But why her? Why now? She didn't feel like a savior or a key to anything. She was just Ava Carter, a human trying to survive in a galaxy that suddenly seemed far too big and far too dangerous. "What do I do?" she asked, her voice trembling. LIHX placed a hand on her shoulder, his gaze steady. "You adapt. You learn. And most importantly, you survive. Because whatever this is, Ava, it's only the beginning." The starship Etheris hurtled through hyperspace, its sleek hull glowing faintly from the energy currents it navigated. Ava sat in the co-pilot's seat, her hands gripping the armrests as the ship vibrated with the force of their acceleration. Beside her, Professor LIHX deftly adjusted the controls with his forearms, his focus split between the holographic navigation display and the rapidly shifting energy readings. "We're approaching the coordinates from your map," he said, his tone calm but laced with tension. "Prepare yourself. What we're about to encounter could redefine everything." Ava swallowed hard and glanced over her shoulder. The rest of the small crew, an engineer from the crystalline Valari species and a pilot from the avian Kashir race, worked silently at their stations. Their expressions betrayed their unease. This mission wasn't just dangerous, it was unprecedented. The rival species had forced their hand. Reports of skirmishes near the academy had made it clear they wouldn't stop until they captured Ava and her map. The only way forward was to follow the uncharted coordinates and uncover the secrets hidden in the void. But with each passing moment, Ava's doubts grew. What if the map led to nothing? Or worse, what if it led to something no one could handle? The ship lurched as it exited hyperspace, the starfield snapping back into view. Gasps filled the cockpit as the crew took in the sight before them. A dense cluster of stars surrounded them, their light refracting off immense, metallic structures floating in the void. The structures were unlike anything Ava had ever seen, colossal, spiraling towers connected by shimmering energy bridges that pulsed with an eerie rhythm. "By the stars," LIHX muttered. "The resonance pylons." Ava's chest tightened. She had seen these structures before, in her dreams, in the quiet recesses of her mind where the map had first taken shape. "They're real," she whispered. The engineer's crystalline body shimmered with agitation. "Energy readings are off the scale. These pylons are generating power levels far beyond any known civilization. And they're ancient," LIHX added, scanning the readings. "Millions of years old, at least. Yet they're still functional." Ava's eyes were drawn to the largest pylon, its surface covered in intricate, glowing symbols that seemed to shift as she stared. She felt a strange pull, as if the structure was calling to her. "I need to go out there," she said, the words spilling out before she could think them through. LIHX turned sharply. "Out there? Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. I don't think I have a choice, Ava said, standing. It's like they're waiting for me. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but LIHX finally nodded. We'll set up a tether. If anything goes wrong, we'll pull you back immediately. Moments later, Ava stepped into the airlock, the pressurized suit clinging to her frame. Her heart raced as the outer hatch opened, revealing the void. Guided by a thin tether, she drifted toward the largest pylon, its surface glowing brighter as she approached. When her gloved hand touched the structure, a surge of energy coursed through her, and her vision went white. Images and symbols flooded her mind, ancient civilizations, galactic wars, and a warning spoken in a language she couldn't understand but felt in her very soul. The message was clear: this knowledge was both a gift and a burden. And it wasn't meant to be found again. As the vision faded, Ava gasped for air. The pylon dimmed, and her tether tightened, pulling her back toward the Aetheris. But as she reached the ship, she knew one thing for certain. They weren't alone anymore. And the galaxy would never be the same. The resonance pylons loomed on the holographic display, their intricate patterns pulsing in synchrony with Ava's racing heartbeat. Back aboard the Aetheris, she sat in the ship's central chamber, her thoughts swirling with the vivid vision she'd experienced when she touched the pylon. Fragments of ancient knowledge flooded through her mind like shards of a shattered mirror, ungraspable yet impossibly clear. What did you see out there? Professor Lihek asked, his dual pupils locked on her with an intensity that made her squirm. Ava rubbed her temples, her voice trembling as she spoke. I saw civilizations, like echoes of the past. And there was a warning, but I can't explain it in words. It's like it's locked in my head. Lihek frowned. Locked? Or encoded? Before Ava could respond, the ship's alarms blared. The cashier pilot, feathers ruffling in agitation, called out from the cockpit. We've got incoming. 2 ships on an intercept course, Vruntak hunters. Ava's stomach turned. The Vruntak, the rival species pursuing her map, were infamous for their ruthlessness. Their arrival was no coincidence. The Aetheris had been tracked, and the pylons were now a battleground. They've come for the knowledge, Lihek said, rising to his full height. We cannot let them access it. The engineer spoke up, their crystalline voice resonating with urgency. We can't outrun them, and the pylon's energy fields are interfering with our defenses. If they board us. They won't have to, Ava interrupted, her voice steadier than she expected. I think I can stop them. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to her. You've seen what those pylons can do, she continued. I think they're connected to me somehow. When I touched one, it reacted. If I can activate them, maybe I can use their energy to keep the Vruntak away. Lihek hesitated. If the pylons are as powerful as we suspect, activating them could have catastrophic consequences. Do we have a better option? Ava challenged. He didn't answer, but his silence was an agreement. Minutes later, Ava was suited up again, tethered to the Aetheris as she drifted toward the largest pylon. The Vruntak ships were closing in, their jagged forms casting ominous shadows against the stars. Ava's hands trembled as she reached for the pylon's glowing surface. Focus, Ava, Lihek's voice crackled through her comm link. Trust your instincts. She pressed her hands against the pylon, and the surge of energy hit her like a tidal wave. Her vision blurred as the ancient symbols reappeared, aligning in her mind like pieces of a puzzle. She understood now. The pylons were more than relics, they were part of a vast network designed to protect the galaxy from itself. Ava's voice echoed through the void, though she didn't recognize it as her own. The pylons responded, their energy bridges flaring to life in brilliant arcs of light. The Vruntak ships hesitated, their instruments overloaded by the sudden surge. They're retreating, the pilot shouted. But Ava wasn't done. She could feel the pylons pulling her deeper, asking for more. The knowledge in her mind flared, unlocking memories that weren't hers. The warning from her vision returned, clearer this time: power unchecked will destroy everything. The energy flared one last time, sending out a shockwave that disabled the Vruntak ships without destroying them. The pylons dimmed, their task complete, for now. Ava collapsed against her tether, her breath ragged as the Aetheris reeled her back in. Inside, the crew rushed to her side. "What did you do?" Lihek asked, his voice filled with both awe and fear. Ava looked at him, her eyes glimmering with the remnants of the pylon's energy. "I used the code," she said softly. "But it wasn't just me. It's alive." The silence that followed was heavy with realization. Whatever the pylons were, they weren't tools. They were something far greater, and Ava was now a part of them. The air inside the Aetherus was thick with tension as the ship drifted in the silent expanse of space. The resonance pylons, now dormant, hovered in the void like ancient sentinels, their once brilliant energy dimmed. Ava sat in the central chamber, her body weak but her mind alive with possibilities and questions. "Status?" Professor Lihek asked, his voice cutting through the silence. The Kashir pilot scanned the console, feathers flattening against his neck. "The Vruntak ships are disabled, but they're regrouping. They won't stay down for long." Ava looked at Lihek, her voice steady despite the storm within her. "We have to leave. The pylons gave me what I needed, they won't let anyone else activate them." Lihek's pupils narrowed. "What do you mean, gave you what you needed?" She hesitated, trying to find the words. "They imprinted something on me. Knowledge, or maybe a connection. It's like they chose me, but I don't fully understand why." The crystalline engineer chimed in, their voice resonating with concern. "If the pylons are as ancient and powerful as they seem, why would they choose a single human? What makes you so special?" Ava met their gaze, unsure herself. "I don't think it's about me being special. I think it's about timing. They've been waiting for someone, or something, to come along. And now that they have, I can feel potential, like they're preparing for something bigger." Lihek's expression darkened. "Potential for what? Peace? Or war?" Ava didn't answer. She couldn't. The warning she'd received when she activated the pylons echoed in her mind. Power unchecked will destroy everything. Before she could respond, the ship rocked violently, alarms blaring. The pilot cursed in his native tongue. "The Vruntak are back. One of their ships is powering up weapons. Shields." Lihek barked, rushing to the cockpit. "Evasive maneuvers." The Aetherus swerved, narrowly dodging a blast from the enemy vessel. Ava felt the ship shudder beneath her feet, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She clenched her fists, the faint hum of the pylon's energy still thrumming in her veins. "We can't hold them off," the engineer said. "Our defenses are too weak." Ava stood, her resolve hardening. "We won't have to." The crew turned to her, confusion etched across their faces. "What are you planning?" Lihek asked. Ava strode to the cockpit, her voice calm but firm. "The pylons aren't just defensive, they're a beacon. If I can use what they gave me, I think I can end this." Lihek hesitated but nodded. "Do it." Ava closed her eyes and focused, her thoughts reaching out to the pylons. She could feel their dormant power, like a sleeping giant waiting to be awakened. The knowledge they had given her came rushing back, and she spoke the ancient command aloud, her voice resonating with unnatural clarity. The pylons roared to life, their energy bridges reigniting in a dazzling display of light. A shockwave of pure energy radiated outward, disabling the Vruntak ships once more, but this time, the effect was different. The ships were pushed away, their systems completely neutralized, while the Aetherus remained untouched. When the light faded, the pylons dimmed again, their purpose fulfilled. Ava slumped into her seat, exhausted but triumphant. "They won't be back," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Lihek steadied her, his expression a mixture of awe and fear. "What have you become, Ava?" She looked out at the pylons, their silent forms a reminder of the burden she now carried. "I don't know," she admitted. "But whatever it is, I think this is only the beginning." The Aetherus turned away from the star cluster, its engines humming as it slipped into hyperspace. Ava sat in silence, the weight of her connection to the pylons pressing heavily on her. She didn't know where this path would lead, but one thing was clear, she was no longer just Ava Carter, a human out of her depth. She was the bearer of a map that could reshape the galaxy, and possibly its fate.